Hello everyone, welcome to today's lesson on frequency tables and in particular finding the mean from group to frequency. Okay, so this is lesson 4 now on continuous data. Okay, so we've done other lessons on discrete data and when the data is not grouped as well. Okay, so anyway, today's starter. Okay, so press pause, copy this down, have a go, press play then when you're ready to go through the answers, please. Okay, welcome back. So for this question, right, what I would have expected you to do, just get my pen ready, okay, is to add two extra columns, isn't it? We always should be adding two extra columns with group frequency like this, okay? So the first column we would add is midpoint, and then the second one, midpoint times by frequency, okay? So the midpoint then, remember, if you're unsure about finding the midpoint, okay, similar to when you've got a median, two numbers left as a median, you would add them together and divide by 2, wouldn't you? So if you're unsure about finding the midpoint, if it's not obvious, but to be fair, lots of the times it is obvious, just add the numbers and divide by 2, okay? So in this first group, the midpoint between 1 and 5 is 3, okay? 1 plus 5 is 6, half of 6 is 3, just to confirm that, all right? This one, the midpoint should be 8, because 6 plus 10 is 16, half of that is 8. Okay, for this one, the midpoint between 11 and 15 is 13. All right, and then again, if you add them together and divide by 2, that confirms that's the correct answer. And then the next one then should be 18, I believe. Okay, that's in between there. Okay, so that's step 1, isn't it? Then what we should be doing is multiplying the midpoint and the frequency together. All right, so 10 times by 3 gives you 30. Then 7/8, 56. Okay, 5 times by 13 is 65. And then 10 times 18 is 180. Okay, so hopefully you did that. The next step then is to find the sum, remember, of these two columns here. So we need the sum of the frequency and we need the sum or total of the midpoint times frequency column. Because remember, if I gave you this question and said find the mean and it was numbers in a list, you would add them all together and divide by how many there are. So this is adding them all together in this column, and this is dividing by how many there are here. Okay, so just add those numbers together up then, isn't it? So for this column here, just add the numbers up. 30 plus 56 plus 65 plus 180, okay, is 331. All right, and then in this column we've got 10 plus 7 plus 5 plus 10, which is 32. Okay, so an estimate for the mean here would just be to divide those two numbers now, biggest first. Okay, so 331 divided by 32 gives us an answer of 10.34375. I'm just going to say 10.3 to 1 dp. Okay, so that's our part done. This question though also says to find the mode and the range as well. All right, so just to quickly do that as well. All right, the mode, remember the mode is the most common number. Okay, so in this case, the mode, there's actually two of them because the most common number just means in this case the one that's got the highest frequency. Okay, so the modal groups are 1 to 5 and also 16 to 20. Okay, because they're the ones with the highest frequency, aren't they? Yeah. So that's how you would do that one. They're the modal groups. Okay. And I suppose if you wanted to say the mode was the midpoints as well, you could do it that way. No problem. And then for the range, we will use the midpoints for the range, okay, because we don't know what numbers to use here. Otherwise, and remember, range is the biggest, take away the smallest, okay? So our biggest midpoint is 18. Our smallest midpoint is 3. So an estimate for our range there would be 15. Okay, so hopefully we got that as a starter, just as a little bit of a recap. Okay, the first example is here then. So you'll notice that it's set out in a slightly different way in terms of the groups. Okay, so this is continuous data now. So when we're looking at discrete data, there's only certain values that I can that can take. So if I quickly go back to the start, look, passengers, okay, when we're talking about in between passengers now here, we're talking about the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because passengers would be people, wouldn't they? So we're not including anything, we're not including every number in between 1 and 5, including decimals. We're only including integers, whole numbers. So it's discrete data. On this one here now, okay, we're still going to use the same method, but this one, you notice this is set out in a slightly different way. So this is saying 0 is less than t, which is less than or equal to 5. So what that means in more simpler terms is the time in seconds is above 0, but less than or equal to 5. All right, and because we're talking about time, there are so many different possibilities in between 0 and 5, isn't it? We're not this time just talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? Because it could be 0.6 seconds, it could be 1.7 seconds, it could be 2.9 seconds, and so on, okay? So this is what we call continuous data, all right? The way we actually work this out, though, is done in the same way, all right? Only there's more likely to be decimal answers, okay? So we're still going to do the midpoint, and then we're still going to do the midpoint times by the frequency afterwards, okay? So the midpoint, again, use the same method that we used last time if you're unsure, okay? So the midpoint of in between 0 and 5, add them together and divide by 2, okay, is 2.5. And it's fine for us to have a decimal midpoint because we're talking about continuous data, okay? The next group then is between 5 and 10, okay, and that midpoint should be 7.5. So add them up and divide by 2 if you're unsure, okay. The next one now, 10 to 15, the midpoint should be 12.5, and again, add them up and divide by 2 if you're unsure. Should get 17.5 then for the next group, okay. And hopefully you can notice now, right, this last group is different to the others because of the width of the group. Look, so the width of each group in the first 4 rows is only 5, but this one now is a width of 10. So that's a slight difference as well, okay? Which means our midpoint there is it's not going to be 22.5, which most people would have probably guessed it was going to be. The midpoint between 20 and 30 is actually 25, isn't it? Oh, we rubbed that out. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so the midpoint's 25. Now we can do our midpoint times frequency, okay? So we're going to do 8 times by 2.5 in this one, which is 20. But just use your calculators anyway. Then we're going to do 12 times by 7.5 for the next one, which is 90. 17 times 12.5 the next one, which is 212.5. Then we're going to do 2 times 17.5 for the next one, which is 35. And then 1 times 25 for the last one is 25, okay? And then the same as before, we're going to find the sum of the frequency column because that's the number of things that we're talking about. We're going to find the sum of the end column here because this is our total of what we're using, okay? So if we add the frequency column up, then we're doing 8 plus 12 plus 17 plus 2 plus 1, which gives us a total of 40. Okay, so whatever we have been measuring here in time, we've measured 40 different pieces of data. And then at the end here, when we add these values up, so 20 plus 90 plus 212.5 plus 35 plus 25, we get 382.5. Okay, so our estimate for the mean now will be 382.5 divided by 40. Just type that into our calculators. That gives us an answer of 9.5625. I'm just going to round that, okay, to 9.6 to 1 dp, but that part's entirely up to you. All right, and it's always a good idea then to double check. This is in seconds now because that's what we're measuring. It's always a good idea to double check that this answer actually makes sense in terms of the data we were given in the table, okay? Because it's quite easy to make a mistake somewhere along here. You might make a mistake in your midpoint, or you're multiplying, or you're adding, and it's quite easy for one mistake to carry over into the next part of your answer. Okay, and then therefore you not get the correct number. So what I would do from here now is look at the data we were given. Okay, our data ranges from 0 seconds up to 30 seconds. 9.6 seconds. It does fall somewhere in one of these groups, doesn't it? It would fall in this group here, the second group. So that gives you a good idea that you've done it correctly. If we got an answer here that was bigger than 30, okay, there's no way that that could be the correct answer, is because the mean can't be bigger than 30 when the range of data only goes up to 30. So it's just about using common sense a little bit, okay? So that's how you would do this type of question. I'm not going to do another example because we've already covered this type of thing in previous lessons anyway. Okay, so make sure you've got that written down, copy down whatever you're working on, and then for the main task, okay, you can look back at this if you're unsure. So the main task now, I want you to do exactly the same thing. So find the mean, or estimate the mean, please, for these 4 data sets. Okay, so press pause, copy these down, and then press play when you're ready to see the answers, please. Okay, welcome back then. So the answers for these 4 questions should be as is shown here. All right, so I've done the 3 decimal ones to 2 decimal places, but you're clever enough to figure out if you had done it to 1 dp instead, then you'll be able to see what your answer is anyway. Okay. Okay, on to the second question now, which I'll show you on the next slide here. Okay, so this is taken from a past exam paper. All right, so Dr. Cannon and Dr. Farrell have different opinions about the mean temperature in their hallway. Dr. Cannon and Farrell recorded the temperature in the hallway at 4 p.m. each day during the 30 days of April. In a notepad, Dr. Cannon summarized the temperatures in a group frequency table. Unfortunately, Dr. Cannon has torn the page containing the table from her notepad and has lost some of the original data, as you can see in the table below. Okay, so the question is saying calculate an estimate of the mean temperature at 4 p.m. for these 30 days in Dr. Khan's hallway. Okay, so what I want you to do first of all is this piece of data here is important. Okay, all right, so using that information, try and figure out what this missing piece of data is first, and then once you've done that, what we've just been doing in the rest of this video, you can apply from there then. All right, so press pause, have a go, and then press play when you're ready to do the answers. Okay, welcome back then. So hopefully you figured out first of all that this missing piece of data was 10, okay, because it's 30 days, so that means we have to add up to 30 in this column, don't we? And we've already got 12 here, look, if we do. We've already got 20, sorry, 12 there plus another 8, which is 20. So this has to be 10, because then that makes the sum or the total 30, doesn't it? So once that's done, then doing the midpoint and midpoint times frequency should be no problem. Okay, so the midpoint for the first one should have been 20.5 because that's in between 20 and 21, look. So then moving on, 21.5 for the next one, 22.5 for the third group, 23.5 for the next group. Okay, now there's no big deal in multiplying these together now. Okay, we've got all the data, so 4 times by 20.5 is 82. 8 times by 21.5 is 172. Okay, 8 times by 22.5 is 180. And then 10 times 23.5 is 235. Okay, we know by now we now need the total of this column as well. So 82 plus 172 plus 180 plus 235 is 669. Okay, so we've got all the information we need now. So an estimate for the mean would be 669 divided by 30, which when you type that into your calculators, okay, you should get 22.3. Okay, so that is the mean temperature. An estimate for the mean temperature is 22.3. All right, so that's how you would do that. Thanks very much. See you soon.